What's up, YouTube and vinyl community? My name is Matt Miller, and this is my first video for the vinyl community. So this is A, my introduction, and B, my response to Dr. Deadwax's 666 subscriber contest. Thank you so much for putting it on, Dr. Deadwax. I've been wanting to do a video for a while, and this gave me the incentive, well, not the incentive, but the extra incentive to really get on it. So I'm really excited. I was really looking forward to starting this, and I'm going to treat this as something of an introduction video, but also I'm obviously going to get into the vinyl real shortly. I am based out of Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. I'm a recent graduate of the professional writing program at Algonquin College, and before that, I took the radio broadcasting program at the same school. Right now, I'm working at a record store here in Ottawa. Looking for something in my field. I'm looking to get into music journalism or promotional writing for a record label, what have you, something in that realm. So, I mean, I'm going to tell you a bit more about myself in this video or in subsequent videos, but without further ado, let's get right into the records, the vinyl. That's why we're all here anyways. So for what I decided to do for the contest is I just decided to go right through my collection, A through to the compilations, and just pick out one record from each letter category. So from the A's, I picked out Accept Kaizokuban, a live EP recorded in Japan on the Metal Heart Tour. Great song, great set list with some unsung Accept classics. I know a lot of you guys in the vinyl community have been talking about the great things that Accept has been doing lately with Mark Tornillo on vocals, and I mean, that stuff is fantastic. I love those records, but this is classic, old school Accept. Great live EP. I just wish it was an album. I mean, if it was a full length, that would have just made it the perfect release, in my humble opinion. From the B's, I pulled Blind Fury, a late entry into the new wave of British heavy metal. This was their one and only release. If you know bands like Satan, Pariah, Skyclad, Blitzkrieg, members of those bands were involved in Blind Fury. If you like Hawkwind and Yes and sort of those kind of spacey progressive rock bands from the 70s, picture that kind of sound filtered through an aggressive and raw new wave of British heavy metal style. Great release, definitely an underrated band. That's the Attic Roadrunner Canadian pressing. Check it out if you've never listened to Blind Fury. This is one of my oddities in my collection. I picked this up for $10 quite some time ago, and it's a great release. It sounds awesome. It's actually a fan club live album from Cinderella. Nobody's Fool live. It's limited edition. I don't know if you can see there. It's number 208 of 300. It also came with a button and a patch, but it's a great live recording. I can't believe they didn't give it an official full release. It's if you like Cinderella, if you like glammy hard rock heavy metal, it's fantastic. They recorded it, I believe, on the Heartbreak Station tour. Next is a little bit of thrash for you out of Los Angeles. And Los Angeles thrash, as I'm sure a lot of you guys out there know, was a pretty rare thing back in the day. From 1986, this is Dark Angel's Darkness Descends, their second full-length record. People say that Slayer's Rain and Blood is the heaviest record of all time. Nuh-uh. Darkness Descends is it, my friend. If you like thrash and you've never heard Dark Angel, you need to check this out. Fantastic performances all around, but specific kudos go to the drum work of one Gene Hoglan, who you may know his name from Death and Strapping Young Lad, among other bands. From the E section, I pulled Ottawa's own Exciter, classic speed metal. This is their first album, Heavy Metal Maniac. This is the American pressing on Shrapnel Records, and let me tell you, these guys are a class act, both musically and personally. I've had the privilege of meeting two of them, Dan Beeler especially. He is a great guy. I don't know if any of you guys out there were aware, but Dan actually has a new band right now. It's called Beeler, and they have one release. It's called Messages to the Dead. God, it's good. Check it out. It's on High Roller Records, and it's a really fantastic release. But I mean, Exciter, just absolute classic speed metal. If you've never heard Exciter, then you are missing out. Fate's Warning is what I pulled from the F's. This is their second album, The Spectre Within. A lot of people think that Awaken the Guardian is their best record, and I mean, it's close. It's real close. I mean, if this were a different day, I would agree. But I mean, Spectre Within is right there with it. There's just something about Fate's Warning, the aggression and the kind of the grandiosity with that aggression made Fate's Warning a really unique entity. And I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever heard Mike Portnoy go on and on and on about Fate's Warning, but Dream Theater wouldn't exist without that band. So if you're a progressive metal fan, thank your lucky stars for Fate's Warning. I like all forms of hard rock and metal. Hard rock and metal is my music. I like all music. I love hard rock and heavy metal, and it's just there's something about the power of it that is just so appealing, and it gets you. It's liberating. I'm sure a lot of you guys feel the same way. This was an album that I pulled because it's a unique album in this band's catalog. They became something far different from what they were on their first album, and that's Great White's debut self-titled. They were a pure, straight-up hard rock and heavy metal band at this time. This was released in 1984, and if you've ever heard songs like Stick It, Out of the Night, God, there's a ton of great tracks on this one. If you've never listened to it and all you've heard is, their Once Bitten, Twice Shy type stuff, Lady Red Light and things like that, you're doing yourself a disservice. You need to check out the first from Great White. It is by far their best record if you are into hard rock and heavy metal. From the H section, I pulled one of my few Japanese records. This is a complete and mint copy of Halloween's Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 1. If you like Maiden, Halloween is like Maiden on crack. It's the melodies and the intricacy of Maiden, but with the speed of thrash. These guys created what would become power metal in Europe, and that's a subgenre that's still going strong to this day. A lot of people owe a big musical debt to Halloween. Great, great band. From the Eyes, I know a lot of people were pulling Maiden, and Maiden is the majority of my Eyes section. So I wanted to pull something a little different, and this is from Arizona. This is Icon. If you dig Keel, you're going to dig Icon, at least on the first record. It's very raw, kind of, it's glam metal, but it's emphasis on metal, and it's a very, very raw, very real production. This is actually a mint copy that I managed to get my hands on. Comes with a poster. Pretty thrilled with that. But they became something very different after their first record. They kind of went in a really AOR direction and softened their sound quite a bit. It's still great stuff. I like. They did 3 or 4 albums, and it's all really, really cool stuff. But that first album is second to none. My favorite band of all time now, Judas Priest with Sad Wings of Destiny. This is an Italian pressing on Gull Records. Gull, as some of you may know, is their original label, and the label that for a long period was the only place that you could find Sad Wings of Destiny, other than obviously the labels in other countries that had the licenses. This is an absolute milestone in the development of heavy metal as a genre. Without Sad Wings of Destiny and without Judas Priest, we would not have heavy metal as it exists today. Every band outside of doom metal owes a giant debt to the Priest. Another band from Germany here, and another thrash band. This is Creator, their second album, Pleasure to Kill. I can't stress enough how classic this is and how essential it is if you like thrash metal, black metal, death metal, any kind of extreme form of the genre. For those of you who have never seen Creator live and profess to be thrash fans, you are missing out. This is one of the great live acts of thrash metal. This is actually a proto death metal album. They kind of went more straight ahead thrash after this, but I mean, there's nothing that sounds like Pleasure to Kill. This is a real obscurity from Los Angeles now. This is a female, all girl heavy metal band. And you guys may know of them from watching The Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, in which some of their members were briefly interviewed. This is Leather Angel, their one EP called We Came to Kill. Now, you may not know the name Leather Angel, but Leather Angel lost a few members and went on to become Jaded Lady. So at the time of filming The Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, that's essentially what the band was called, was Jaded Lady. The vocalist right here, Terry O'Leary, fantastic female front woman, and the guitar, yes, the guitar player, Debbie Wolf, I believe. No, sorry, is the bass player, Kathy Amenti, who were in Jaded Lady at the time. I believe the other two members had vacated their post prior to the band becoming Jaded Lady. Now, I got this release at the last iteration of the Ottawa Community Record Show, and it's one of my two. I got two death metal albums at the record show, and this was one of them. I was so happy to finally get this band in my vinyl collection, and it's a great album. This is Morbid Angel's second record, Blessed Are the Sick. It's an original earache pressing, and what can you say about Morbid Angel? They're one of the originals of death metal. Without Morbid Angel, we wouldn't have a lot of what we have in extreme metal. And Blessed Are the Sick is, along with Altars of Madness, is one of their magnum opuses. David Vincent, for all his failings, was a musical genius, and some would say still is. At least he still takes risks, you know? Another band from Florida, Nasty Savage, bridging the gap between traditional heavy metal and thrash metal. Nasty Savage was a really old school band well, it's from the 80s, obviously it's old school, but they did a lot of tracks on different Metal Blade comps. I don't know if they were on any Metal Massacres. They probably were, but they were definitely on a number of Metal Blade Records compilations, and they're a pretty unique band. Definitely had a huge influence on the later death metal scene that I was just talking about with Morbid Angel. This is Penetration Point. Great record, not quite as good as their debut, but all Nasty Savage is good stuff. If you've never heard Nasty Savage, check them out for sure. Obscure band from Sweden now. This is Overdrive, their second album, Swords and Axes. This was actually a record that I began tracking down on the recommendation of Martin Popov. He gave this a 10 out of 10 in his Heavy Metal Collector's Guide, Volume 2, the 80s. If you guys have ever read Martin Popov, he's one of my favorite writers and definitely a big influence in what I'm trying to get to as far as my music writing and my music journalism and things like that. I mean, him and guys like Ian Christie, they really started me on the path to learning about and really appreciating the music that I now hold so dear, and the music that has affected my life so immensely. So on the off chance that they're watching this, thank you so much, Ian and Martin. Another record show find, Pretty Maids, band out of Denmark. This is their first album, Red Hot and Heavy. Very, very traditional metal, Judas Priest kind of stuff. But with that Scandinavian, Central European sense of melody. If you've never heard of Pretty Maids, they're a really unique band, especially here. Check it out. Great record. A lot of you guys have talked in recent videos about this next band, about their most recent release and all the turmoil that's been surrounding them. But I wanted to go right back to the beginning and show their first release. God, it's a good one. This is the first EP, self-titled EP from Queensryche out of Seattle. Fun fact, actually, Jeff Tate was at the time not an official member of the band. He had come in to do session vocals. He was in a band at the time called The Mob. The EP took off and he decided to stay on, and the rest is history. They did obviously some fantastic stuff after that, and it all came crashing down not too long ago. But I mean, the band is really kicking it with the new vocalist, Todd Latour. God, that new record is good, as a lot of you guys have already said. Here's another oddity out of my collection, and something that I definitely hold really dear with the passing of the late great Ronnie James Dio just a couple of years ago. This is a promo copy of Rainbow on Stage. Now, it's not actually the full album. It is sections of the album interspersed with interview audio from. It's a conversation including Richie Blackmore, Ronnie James Dio, and Australian radio DJ Trevor Smith. It's a pretty interesting item, and it actually came with a promotional photo of Ronnie, Richie, and Cozy, and a press package as well, and it came in this great red sleeve. I was very pleased to pick that up. It was only $15. I was so excited when I found that. Found it at a store here in town. This is an underrated band, and actually LJ Biosite 1 has shown a couple of their albums on cassette tape before. If you guys like TSO, John Oliver's Pain, any of those bands, and you haven't heard this record, shame on you. You definitely need to change it. This is Savage's first album, Sirens. This is the UK Music for Nations pressing. This record is so good. This came out in 1983, the same year that Metallica's first record came out. This blows Kill 'Em All out of the water. And I love Metallica. I think Kill 'Em All is a fantastic record. But the production on this, especially for an indie, is just absurd. John Oliver has one of the best voices in heavy metal, and Chris Oliver is my all-time favorite guitar player. If you've never heard Sirens, you need to change it, especially try to get it on vinyl. It's going to be tough, but you got to do it. If you like hard rock and heavy metal, you owe it to yourself to listen to some Sabotage. Out of New York now, and I was actually talking a little bit about the frontman of this band a little bit earlier. This is T.T. Quick's first EP on Avalanche Records. Mark Tornillo of Accept, of course, was the vocalist for T.T. Quick. Nuclear Assault drummer Glenn Evans is also on this piece. Great EP. Nothing out of the box, really, but it's really, really solid. Really happy to have that one. That's a fairly recent addition to my collection as well. Now, the U section of my my collection doesn't have a lot of metal, so I pulled a hard rock record just to kind of make sure this video was well-rounded. I pulled UFO's No Place to Run. Now, when people think of UFO, they usually think of Michael Schenker. This is the first album, I believe the first album, without Michael Schenker on guitar, and instead it's Paul Chapman. But it's a classic record. If you guys stop your UFO consumption with the last of the Michael Schenker material, you're doing yourself a disservice. No Place to Run is arguably the best record of the catalog, and that's coming from somebody who considers themselves a UFO fan. Now, I mentioned earlier that Judas Priest is my favorite band of all time. This is a very, very close second. Van Halen, my favorite album by them, Van Halen 2. I've always found that as good as Van Halen 1 is, you can't sneer at that record. You can't screw with it. But Van Halen 2, I just found had a little more depth, a little more variety, and some of the songs on here are just mind-blowing. You know, Bottoms Up, Out of Love Again, Somebody Get Me a Doctor, some of the heaviest stuff that they ever recorded, and thank God that DLR is back in the band and that they've released one stomper of a record in A Different Kind of Truth. If you haven't heard that one, don't know what you're doing. You're not doing it right, whatever it is. I also wanted to pull a single. I don't have too many singles in my collection, but this one definitely has some merit for the immense quality of the B-side on it. This is Wasp's Blind in Texas single. Look at that cover. God, that's a hilarious cover. I just love it so much. Wasp, of course, one of the great bands out of LA in the 80s, and Blackie Lawless is one of the all-time great songwriters in glam metal, in heavy metal, and hard rock. You can't screw with Wasp. Also out of LA, here's Y&T, my favorite Y&T record, Mean Streak. Another great cover with the robotic snake there. I don't know what it is about Mean Streak. I just feel like it's Y&T's most consistent record. And there's nothing wrong with other Y&T records, but this is just completely solid with no bumps in the road from front to back. And what you were just hearing up to a minute or two ago was this the soundtrack to The Decline of Western Civilization Part 2. That was the A side, so it started with a cover of, well, it's not even a cover. Alice Cooper is on it, but it's Under My Wheels featuring Axl Rose, Slash, and Izzy Stradlin. The last one you heard there was a Lizzie Borden cover of Steppenwolf's Born to Be Wild. The soundtrack is actually substantially different from the stuff that was featured in the movie. I mean, in the movie you don't get tracks from Queensryche or Metal Church or Rigor Mortis, but it's still a great soundtrack. I was very pleased to get this for $5 at not this past record show, but the one before that. So that's it for now, guys. I'm going to definitely upload another video in the very near future, kind of finish my introduction. But thanks again to Dr. Deadwax for putting on this contest, and I hope to really get to know some of you guys in the community. I've been watching a lot of your videos and really enjoying them, and I'll see you all very soon. I'll talk to you later.